The classification of the functions of government, COFOG, is useful to answer fiscal policy questions concerning how much the government spends on certain types of activities, such as education, health, and social protection. For this purpose, we need to consider both expense and net investment in non-financial assets, that is, expenditure. Let's look at the case of Myanmar's General Government COFOG. In 2017, expenditure was about 25% of GDP. Where did this spending go? 3 categories taken together covered about 3/4 of total spending. Close to 45% of total expenditure was on economic activities, economic affairs, of which about half was spent on fuel and energy. General public services and defence each represented over 15% of total expenditure, with a significant part of the former being spent on public debt transactions. How did this spending change over time? Spending on health increased from about 3.5% of total expenditure in 2012 to just over 5% of total expenditure in 2017. Nevertheless, in general, shares of spending were reasonably stable between 2012 and 2017. From a fiscal policy perspective, an analyst may have additional observations and questions. For instance, an analyst might seek to know whether the increase in spending on education and health was sufficient to address any deficiencies in education and health facilities or staff, consistent with stated policy objectives. As another example, an analyst could observe that expenditure on economic activity shifted away from mining, manufacturing and construction and toward fuel and energy. The policy debate in this case might revolve around the relative returns to investment in these areas, including whether needed infrastructure improvements have been overlooked. Looking to the future, the analyst also might weigh the merits of switching expenditure from other areas to address any remaining deficiencies. Additional information combined with GFS would be needed to analyse these points.